I'm a 34-year overnight success. And I haven't even scratched the surface of what's on the horizon, but everyone wants it right now. They want it yesterday. And it's like, no, you got to put in the hard rowing today and tomorrow and the next day. Over the next 855 days, you got to put in that hard rowing if you even want to have a chance at having success. But sometimes folks get in their own mind and they're either lazy, they're scared, they have unrealistic expectations that, oh, I go to the gym today, where's my six pack? No, come and holler at me 10 months down the road when you've been consistently hitting the gym and you've been eating right. No more Bojangles for you.
All right, welcome everyone to another episode of the Jake Dunlap Show. We are very excited that you joined us. If you haven't tuned in, this is the show where we talk to celebrities, thought, and industry leaders to really discover their journey to success. I am super excited that you're joining us. This show is like no other. I can promise you that. You might laugh, you might cry, but you will definitely leave inspired and gain a whole new level of insight into those people that you follow, love, and admire. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Jake Dunlap Show. I am very excited. This gentleman, I got to tell you, it's like I wish I had a 5 to 10 second alarm clock that could wake up with this gentleman just like screaming positivity into your ear, because this gentleman today is one of the most genuine, excited, accomplished, enthusiastic people that I've ever had a chance to interact with. Every single time that he and I talk, I walk away feeling fantastic. I think listeners and everyone who listens to his content and definitely checks out his new book will walk away the same way. Everyone join me in welcoming Mr. Larry Long Jr. Larry, thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you for having me, Jake. I'm happy to be here. I'm honored and privileged. Just got to make sure that my microphone is tuned in. Can you hear me now?
You always have the microphones tuned in, man. You always have got the mics tuned in. So I'm looking forward to the conversation today. Larry, for people who don't know you, man, again, like people might follow you on LinkedIn. If you don't, we'll put some notes, we'll put a link in the show notes too. Talk a little bit about the early days. In the episodes, we always talk about the earlier days and kind of what made people who they are. You're born in Baltimore, bounced around a little bit, kind of stayed in that, like, what do they call that, the mid-Atlantic area for at least a little bit. I know you came back to go to college there and you were like Mr. All Baseball, but what was childhood like for you? Like, what were some of some of the memories you have about, kind of growing up and, whether it's lessons in business or lessons in life that you learned early?
Yeah, early memories. So born in Baltimore, both of my parents worked for Department of Veterans Affairs, serving our veterans that served for our freedom. So we moved Grand Island, Nebraska. I was younger.
Oh, there we go. The Sandhills, man. I lived out in Alliance, Nebraska, like back in the day. My brother was born in Alliance, Nebraska. Shout out to the Sandhills of Nebraska. So
wow, twisters. My parents have news clippings of 7 tornadoes touching down, and they pretty much said everyone's worried for their life. And we're in the basement. We lived in an apartment complex. I'm running around just happy as can be, and everyone's like, "Who is this happy little kid? We're about to die."
You had like a transistor radio. You're down there with the radio trying to do that. Yeah, trust me. I remember. I definitely remember those days and those stories too, of some pretty epic ones.
Crazy. But moving from Nebraska to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, to Danville, Illinois, Coatesville, Pennsylvania, then back to Maryland. But some of the memories I have, my mom used to sing a song, "Make new friends, but keep the old. One is silver while the other is gold," because it was like every 2 years I had to leave my old buddies, my old friends, and make new friends. And when you're in elementary school, middle school, that can be tough. But it really made me who I am today. I've never met a stranger, Jake. And that came from just the encouragement of my parents to get out, make new friends, meet new people. And I'll never forget, kids can be cruel. I used to have a gap, kind of Michael Strahan-like in my 2 front teeth. And I used to get teased. And I would give some teasing back. But my mom, we would say our prayer at night. she used to make me stand up in the middle of the room every night, hold my hands over my head and say, I am somebody. And when you do that I think I was 7 years old, you start to believe that you are somebody. You speak it into an existence. So you got this little nappy-headed 7-year-old walking around with this George Jefferson strut talking about, I am somebody. People are like, who is this little kid? He thinks he is somebody. And that stuck with me my whole life. And I'll be honest, playing sports, I used to be cocky. I was super cocky. I was somebody to the nth degree. But what I realized is that confidence is different from cockiness. People don't like to be around cocky. You don't want cocky around. You want confident that uplifts everybody. So those were some of the early lessons that I had. We moved to Coatesville, Pennsylvania, and I had my first taste of entrepreneurship. Lawns by Larry, knocking on doors, asking folks, can I mow your lawn? And we lived in townhouses, so it was $10 for the middle units because that was just the front and the back. It was $12 for the end units because that was front, back, and the side to side.
That's right. That's right. And what do you think? I want to go back to something you said, because I think this is something that a lot of people struggle with, or at least, and I think it's where kind of imposter syndrome or part of it comes from, is how do you delineate between confidence and cocky? I think to some people, to them, they might feel like they're being cocky or they're being confident. Like, how did that lesson manifest? Or, how do you think about, like, I guess the way that you learned that lesson or you saw it manifest in others?
As a freshman at University of Maryland, go Terps. And I got my Maryland gear on.
I saw that.
That's not Missouri State. That's not Boomer the Bear, but this is the Terrapins. I did my research. Come on, Jake. But my freshman year, I was in the outfield, and I used to love Ricky Henderson. So I'm out there tapping my leg, snagging the ball, and one of our veterans, J.R. Thomas, rest in peace, he said, you can't do that in the ACC. That was when Maryland was still in the ACC. He said, you'll get one of us hit. We'll take a fastball to the dome, and we don't want that. He said, hey, you can believe in yourself, but you can't show cockiness. It's kind of like a peacock who wants to show all their feathers. Nah. Be confident and you can be confident without being cocky, without spreading it all out there. And he really shared the lesson with me my freshman year, and I was humbled. I was number 3 on the depth chart in the fall. I thought I was going to be starting in the spring. I'm not a math major, Jake, but there's 3 outfield positions, and I was number 3. But I started off the season sitting on the bench. I was pulling the wood out of my behind. I was a bench warmer, and I'll never forget. I used to get in as a defensive replacement. I would get in that bat here or there. I started off my career 1 for my first 24. That's .042, which will get you left out.
Not even the Mendoza line. That's the Mendoza line.
Not even close. Yeah, and I talked to my father. We had just played UNC Greensboro. I think I had 3 strikeouts. He said, how you feeling, little Larry? I said, Dad, I feel terrible. I stink. I don't belong in the ACC. I don't belong in Division I. And my dad, who ran track at Maryland, he jumped through that phone. He yanked me up. He had some choice words that I don't think the FCC would appreciate. So I'll let your listeners use their imagination. There were 3-letter and 4-letter words that he used. But essentially, he told me, if you don't believe in yourself, you're done for it. You might as well give up. And he said, I'm Larry Long Jr. He said, you can't have my name if you're going to give up. With a stank attitude like that, he said, get back to the drawing board and work on your craft. And most importantly, work on your mindset. It's kind of like the quote from Henry Ford, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. And UNC Chapel Hill came to town. I got a blue pit. I was like Kanye West, on top of the world. Can't nobody tell me nothing. And I batted .289 my freshman year, .319 in the ACC. All it took was that boost of confidence from my father, working hard, and then that hit that allowed me to believe in myself that, hey, I do belong here. 4-year starter, man. Never would have imagined it, but essentially I was able to imagine it with help from my father.
All right. Well, that's amazing, man. And I mentioned how you imagine that, like that conversation, and then you graduate And then, you go into the workforce, right? Like anybody else, you graduate, you've got kind of a series of, you go to Accenture, right? Then you start to get back to your entrepreneurial, your baseball academy, et cetera. And then you kind of get into this mix of sales, et cetera. So what was kind of the early career like for you? Obviously I'm sure coming out of Maryland, like going to a job like Accenture is like fantastic, right? What was like early career like as you were kind of figuring out your path?
I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, I think they call it. I honestly didn't think I would be there at Accenture. I thought that minor league baseball was going to be knocking at my door. That
Right.
June draft came around and crickets. I didn't hear from anybody. So I went to some tryout camps and they all shared with me, thank you for coming out. God bless you and good night. Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord splits you. So I had to enter the working world. Accenture, it was an amazing learning experience. It paid well relatively, but I wasn't passionate about it. So I stayed there for 3.5 years and I learned a lot. I learned about the details when my billable rate was $150 an hour. I wasn't seeing that, but that's how much they billed me as a little underling, a little analyst. And I thought I was doing something, but I wasn't passionate about it. I was serving clients such as Verizon, helping them make more profits and increase their stock price by eliminating positions. We were sending positions to India. And I said, this can't be God's plan for me. And that's what led me to open my indoor baseball and softball academy, which that's still, there's a soft spot in my heart for my old MVP baseball softball academy. I still have kids that I trained. They were in elementary, middle, high school. They hit me on LinkedIn. Coach Larry, I still don't forget. Head down, eye on the ball, hard line drives.
I love it, man. Well, that's how it is. Again, it goes back to the same lessons that you have. And I think, I've got now a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old, and, I'm seeing it even myself of just, man, he's like, now I'm like, man, he sees everything. It used to be like, he wouldn't remember this or that. Now it's like, oh man, he's watching 24/7. Like they're all watching. And so I think it's crazy just how much we see and how much we can impact other people. And we are impacting people, like you said, whether you believe you can or you believe you don't, you're impacting people, whether you want to, one way or another, you're impacting people. And,
That's right.
I think you're somebody who's a voice for good and for doing that. And so how did you then, get into sales, or like, what was it about kind of through these different roles? Like, how did you get into sales? What was it about sales that was, particularly kind of like the journey from marketing to sales? If I look at kind of the, SageWorks and some other places.
Yeah, I fell into it, to be honest. My first sales was Lawns by Larry, knocking on doors.
That's right.
And I was so nervous. My mom said, go out there. What's the worst someone can say to you? No. She said, is it really that bad? I was like, yes. I don't like to hear no. But I went out there and I knocked on doors and I had conversations. The next year, she dressed my sister in her Sunday best. And she said, take your sister with you. No one can resist a cute little baby girl. No one will say no to you then. And it actually worked a little bit, but professional sales, I fell into it. I had my baseball academy. It didn't work out. It was unsuccessful. And there was a company that loved athletes. They hired a lot of Duke athletes. So I had to hide my Maryland roots to get in there. But we were making 150 cold calls a day to CPA firms and accountants. And they get paid based on time. So for me to call about a piece of software, they were like, no. I had an accountant in New Jersey who said, Larry, I got something for you. I want you to put on a pair of concrete shoes and jump off a bridge. I said, whoa, where in the manual? How do I overcome that objection? That's not in our manual. So I said, the first thing that came to mind, I said, God bless you too. And then I hung up. But what I learned is that when you ditch the script, I was reading off of a script like a robot. Hello, this is Larry Long Jr. calling with SageWorks and Profit Sense. No one wants to hear that. I had a manager, I'll never forget, James Hatfield, who said, Larry, talk to these prospects like you talk to your homeboys. I said, James, you don't understand how I talk to my homeboys. That might be an HR violation. He said, you're right, you're right. He said, find a happy medium and talk to them like they're people. So when I ditched the script and I just started freestyling, and when I started sharing my story of being a failed small business owner, I was able to make more connections. And what I learned is sales is about serving others. It's about really playing matchmaker of what you have. It could be a thought, an idea, a product, a service with someone else's needs, their wants, their desires, their challenges. And if you can make that match, it all works out in the end. It all works out. And that's been the story of my career. When you put other people in front of you, when you serve their needs, your needs, I would say magically, but it's not even magic. It's just the way it is. When you serve others, you get served in return.
Yeah, I love that. But I think that that's a tough lesson to learn. At least for me, it was too. I mean, you're just so used to, I think in sales so much, there's a lot of leadership. It's like, what's the ask, right? Like, I grew up in a world of like, what's the call to action? If there's no call to action, why are we doing it? If there's no that, and it took me a long time, and honestly, until like the last 5 or 6 years, where I really appreciated, not that I was like overly selfish with my time or, rude about it, just the power of giving with no ask, and actually what that can do for you and what that can do for you in the long term. And I think what happens is a lot of times in sales, people get used to playing the short game. The short game is call to action, call to action, call to action. The mid game is maybe a little bit of that and some add value, and the mid to long is, just adding value. And I think so many people out there, it takes maybe, especially if you've been a conditioned salesperson, it takes a little bit of a leap of faith, I feel like, to where you've got to say, okay, well, I guess I'll just try this and maybe it will pay off, or it should pay off. And I think Larry can tell you, I can tell you that the more you give, the more you put out there. You might not see it today, but wow, it just shows up randomly. That cup of coffee you had, that again, the person who calls you and now they're successful, whatever, but they remember you from baseball academy, etc. Like it's such an important piece for people to understand the value of giving and the value of putting it out there with no ask.
So true. And Jake, real quick, here goes the story. When I had my baseball academy, we hit tough times financially. I went to Bank of America, tried to withdraw money. They said, Mr. Long, you must have jokes. You can't make a withdrawal because you haven't made enough deposits. They said, unless you're Black Magic, which I know some card tricks. I'm the Black David Blaine. They said, unless you know Black Magic, you can't take any money out. So it's kind of like that with relationships. So many times, and I'm guilty of this, I'll make an ask, but I haven't made any deposits. So people are like, unless you're Black Magic, I can't give you anything because you haven't made any deposits. It's relationship deposits. It's showing people through your actions that you care. And when you do that, like you said, it just at the most randomest times, it comes back to you when you're not even expecting it. You're not giving with the intent to receive. You're just giving the give. And it's amazing how it comes full circle. I'm experiencing that now. I just hit my 1-year anniversary as a full-time speaker and an author. And it's just amazing how the community has supported and really blessed me beyond belief. And folks have said, Larry, you've given me, whether you knew it or not, you've given me so much. This is the least that I can do to support you. It's been overwhelming in a good way, to be honest with you, Jake.
Yeah. And well, let's talk about this. So you got this career, you're in sales, you're doing your thing. At what point do you start to think about, and again, I'll use the term personal brand, and you talk about this a lot, or maybe it's not, positive mindset, power of mentorship, personal, professional brand building. When does this start to become an avenue for you? Like, at what point are you like, okay, I think that this is an important thing for me to do. It's something that I need to do to either give back or to add value. Was there an aha moment? Was it kind of a culmination of things? Like, when did you kind of realize, like, okay, I need to invest in this thing called my personal or professional brand?
Yeah, it's amazing, Jake, because when I was at Maryland, my teammates used to joke, "Oh, he's the mayor of College Park." Our baseball stadium was set up by the student union where students would walk by and people would always be like, "Yo, what's up, Larry?" So it was crazy because I was always building relationships. I was always a part of like the student government, the Black Student Union, sports, National Leadership Honor Society. I always had my hands in a bunch of things. So I was doing it without even realizing it.
Yeah.
I worked for a company called Pendo. They're a unicorn.
Yeah.
I was employee number 40. And I had one of our sales leaders say, "Hey, Larry, I was at a transition point where I was trying to figure out what my next move was." And he said, "Larry, I don't know if you know this or not, but you built a brand on LinkedIn. My recommendation is that you leverage that for your next step." And that really got me thinking, wow, I do have a brand. I'm the energetic, crazy dude that talks loud. So it was really at that point, and I'll tell you, Morgan Ingram, he said, "Larry, I see you doing short form content on LinkedIn. You got to do video." I said, "Nah, Morgan, I got the face for radio. I don't want people to laugh at me." He said, "Larry, they're already laughing at you, whether you know it or not." But he was like, "I'm going to tell you what my mentor told me. If you don't do it, you're being selfish because you're making it about you and you being scared." He said, "If you can impact one person for the positive, that's all that matters." And when he said that, I said, "Hey, I'm not selfish." That was on a Friday. The next Wednesday, I went on video, and that was the start of my Midweek Midday Motivational Minute. Tomorrow will be episode number 114, 114 weeks.
I love it. Consecutive weeks. Right? I love that,
114
man.
out of the last 115. I took off Father's Day of 2020 to spend with my kids.
That's understandable. We'll give you a pass on that one. Yeah, I kind of had a moment like that. I posted every day for like 2 years, and there's like, you know what? I'm out. I'm not going to do it. And like you finally you give yourself that one pass, so it's all good. And you should, by the way. So, all right.
Right.
So you start to do this. What time are we thinking, like year wise here? Is this like what, like, is this 2019, like what time are we at right now? In terms of like when you started
right
to
at
get.
the start of this was at the pandemic. It was April. I think it was right around April 14th, April 20th of 2020. And I don't know if you remember, March 13th, Friday the 13th
Oh, yeah.
was when my office shut down. That was when the NBA, Rudy Gobert was over there touching all the microphones.
That's right.
ACC, Big Ten, all the tournaments, basketball tournaments shut down, no March Madness. So it was in the thick of it.
Yep. So you started to get into it. So this is 2020. Again, you had been putting out content before though, right? It wasn't until like this 2020 is when you're like, all right, I'm going to go try to like really lean in on this. Like you said, start the videos, et cetera. And then, how has that evolved? Like, again, like what was it for you? And obviously, look, again, what a lot of people don't know, well, maybe you know this about Larry or maybe you don't. Like Larry's also working. Larry also works. And, now is kind of working for himself. And doing a lot of things as well too. But you stayed in the game, and you were in sales and sales leadership, and we met again. We intersected again. I think when at Teamworks, I think we did like a technology implementation or something for you guys back in the day, back last year at some point. And then what made you kind of make the leap? What was it for you? And obviously, we'll talk about the book here, Jolt, in a second, which, we'll link to and, really encourage everyone to take a listen to or read, depending on, how you absorb content. But what made you finally say, oh, all right, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to go all in on me.
Ooh, it was a journey. It was a big journey because I had my first paid engagement March 17th. And I'm not Irish. I'm not even Black Irish, Jake, but St. Patrick's Day, 2021, I had my first paid speaking engagement. And that gave me the confidence, the boost that I can do what I've been doing, rocking the mic, and get paid for it. So it was 2022, March 26th. It was a Friday. And the decision was made for us to separate. I was a sales director at Teamworks, and we were able to come to a decision that, hey, we can stay as friends, but we don't need to be together anymore. And that was when I hung my shingle. And it was something that I had noodled on for a long time. Mm-hmm. But I'll be honest, I was scared. I was scared, Jake. It's
Of course.
tough when you get a paycheck every 2 weeks. I was in sales, so I got a commission check every month, and then I got a healthy bonus every quarter. I said, I'd be stupid or dumb to leave this. But my mom, who's so wise, she said, Larry, you got to pray and pray harder for the answer of what you need to do. And for me, my faith is very important to me. And March 26th, everything culminated on where I needed to be and where I didn't need to be. And I haven't looked back since. It was just an amazing transition. There was a lot of FUD, not Elmer FUD, but fear, uncertainty, and doubt on, can I do this? Am I worthy? Am I smart enough? Can I really do this full time? And I think the answer is yes. The answer that I've come to so far is that yes, I can. And we're going to talk about the book, but that was another thing. Who would have thunk that Larry Long Jr. would be an author? If you told any of my English teachers Larry Long Jr. wrote a book, they would say, where's Ashton Kutcher? I must be getting punked. There's no way that dude wrote a book. But it's one of those things that when you believe in yourself and you surround yourself with a team of people that love you, that support you, that can help you. Hercules. It's amazing. It's kind of like what Kevin Garnett said when the Celtics won the championship. Anything is possible.
I love it, man. And so tell me, like, again, out of all the things you could talk about, like, how did you pick, again, the topic in Jolt? How did you decide that this was going to be the book or the idea? I think a lot of people who think about writing a book, they're kind of torn between this thing or this thing, but how did kind of the idea for Jolt come about originally?
Yeah, at the time, I think I had 48 episodes of my Midweek Midday Motivational Minute. And I worked with a book consultant who said, that's your book. Let's pick your most meaningful 7. Actually, we started with 10. We narrowed it down to 7 topics and themes. And that was the culmination of my book. And every week for my Midweek Midday Motivational Minute, I try to encourage folks to be the best that they can be and encourage folks to know that you have greatness inside of you. I don't care what anyone else says. I don't care what you say to yourself. Don't believe the hype. That's fake news. You have greatness inside of you. And I've been sharing that message verbally, but now I had the opportunity to put it in written form. And you talked about listening. I'm about to go in the studio in July for the audio book so people can hear my voice.
There we go.
But I'm just super excited to be able to share that message that I really believe. And I've been so fortunate that folks have believed in me and in my greatness. There's been times where I haven't believed that I had any greatness. It's like, am I really somebody? Well, yeah, my mom told me I am somebody. So this is really my opportunity to give back, to let folks know I believe in you. Now you need to believe in you. Let's do some great things.
And again, what do you hope that people take away from this, right? So obviously, I think there's probably a message of you got this, et cetera. For people out there that, I think, again, like, you've got so much energy, right? And, I think sometimes I'm sure some of the stuff that I put out, people feel that way too, where it's like, it's just, and you and I were talking before we started recording about where it actually comes from. And like, look, hey, we all have like interesting days, or maybe not the perfect days. What do you hope that, like, let's say somebody out there who, is like, okay, like, I get it. Like, I want to be positive. Maybe they didn't have that in their ear. Maybe they didn't have that parent or that role model or that mentor, in their ear when they were growing up, or kind of instilling them with that, not lack of fear of failure, but maybe, they're really, terrified by failure, or terrified of, like, stepping out. What do you hope that type of person takes away from the book? That they can, that you feel is kind of like I don't know if it's like a tactical first step or a strategic first step, but what do you feel is the first step for someone like that?
Yeah. And every one of my chapters, I give 3 jolts, 3 things that you can do. And I tell folks, let's speak it into existence. I don't care if you have roommates. I don't care if they think you're crazy. If you're not saying your greatness out loud, it's very tough to step into it. So I encourage folks to say, I am somebody every day. 10 times a day, in the morning, in the evening, whatever works for you. I had a young lady, Callie, on my team. She would walk to work, and at every cross intersection, she would do her superwoman pose, and she would just give herself a boost, and it worked. It's amazing because most people are like, that's hokey, that doesn't work. Well, until you give it a try, don't tell me that it didn't work, because it worked for me. It's worked for others. I think it can work for you. But really, the main message, and you said it, Jake, it's a simple message of believe in yourself. I mean, what story are you telling yourself? We have so many thoughts throughout the day, and sometimes they can be negative. Well, if you're telling yourself a negative story, guess what? You're probably going to live a negative life. You're going to step into that negativity. Who are you surrounding yourself with? I know that I looked at your recent podcast guests, and there was one, you are what you eat. That would make me a fried chicken sandwich from Bojangles, because guess what time it is? It's bow time. But what people are you surrounding yourself with, Jake? What books, what podcasts are you listening to? Are they uplifting and positive? Or are they negative Nancy's, negative Nellies, negative Neds that are just bringing you down? Or are they uplifting and they're cheering you on? So there's a chapter called Back to Basics. Okay. Back to basics. Do you say please and thank you? Are you nice to people? Do you give them a smile? Do you have theme music when you hop up on the Zoom or you come up in the room? All of that plays a part in your success. And I don't care if you think it's hokey. I really believe that it's those little things that are really the big things. The little things mean so much. And if you can execute on the little things over time, you're going to see your greatness just blossom. That's my experience. And that's what I want people to realize from reading Jolt.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that, again, it's so, I use the scenario for me at times when I get in those moods. I don't know where it comes from. It's a very famous. It's like Rome wasn't built in a day. Right. And it's very difficult, I think, for a lot of people to see where people are and understand that didn't happen overnight. It took time. It took discipline, is something that I think too, especially as we get older. Not that people become less disciplined, but we get more complacent maybe. And I think for anyone out there who's listening, whether you're 30, 40, 50, 60, it's never too late to take a step, to take one positive step forward. I love that, kind of positive reinforcement and mental, there's a lot of different frameworks of breathing and other things that people do to really get themselves. But, I can tell you, it's just that one step. And instead of thinking again of Rome and the Colosseum and all these different things that were built, you got to think about like the first street that needs to be built and the first stone that needs to be laid. And not worry about all these other things. And I don't know, Larry, I'm sure you see this too. I cannot tell you the amount of people that I see that fail in life because they are always thinking about things that could maybe possibly happen at step 75. Well, I can't do that. Well, this thing happens, etc. And, it's focus on what you can control today. And if you're always thinking about all the ways it can't happen, like you said, the Ford comment, there's a guarantee it's not going to happen. And for anybody listening, again, my number one advice is just try to focus on what you can control today. Do one small thing, two small things that will move you forward or move you toward the life that you want. And I think anybody can do it. Whatever that small change is for you, you can kind of figure it out because everyone's different. Everyone wants a little something different.
And Jake, I want to give them something that they can do right now, right this second. It's called the hashtag 3-minute challenge. I need you to go into your Rolodex. I know some of the folks in their 30s and 40s are like, is that the fancy watch? Nah, that's a Rolex. Your Rolodex, go into your contact list in your phone. And I need you to find one person that you haven't been in touch with 3 months, 3 years, 3 decades. I don't know. Just find someone. And I want you to think through, take 3 minutes to think through, how can I surprise and delight them? If you were my 3-minute challenge, Jake, guess what? I'm not going to go get Boomer the Bear, but I'm going to find a Sun Devil funny GIF on Google, and I'm going to send it to you. It's probably going to be the Sun Devil when he's walking through the stadium and he's putting the sword down on the football stadium. And I'm just going to say, hey, Jake, I was thinking about you today, man. I'm giving you a virtual dap. I hope all is well. I'm not asking you for anything. I'm not trying to withdraw. I'm just making a deposit to let you know I was thinking about you. If you do that each and every weekday, you can take the weekends off. Hashtag 3-minute challenge. Your life will be transformed. In 3 months, you'll start to see some transformation. In a year, your life will be completely fulfilled because you're really supporting so many people on a personal level every single day. It's amazing.
How do you feel, Larry? I mean, again, I think a lot of people have intentions. How, is it just that people don't make the time for it? Because I feel like that's the excuse with a lot of, oh yeah, I know. Oh, it's just 3 minutes. Oh, this is what, like, I don't know. I mean, is it excuses? Is it just not really a priority? Like, why don't people take the time to deposit, as we kind of come full circle a little bit on some of the conversation? Why do you feel like, we don't see the value in it? Is it, maybe it goes back to what we were talking about where, you don't see that you can retire with your 401k with the first deposit, right? It's over time and compounding interest and those things. But why do you think it is? Why do you think people struggle with that, or to kind of keep that positivity going?
Yeah, Jake, it's tough. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it. It takes commitment. And I ask folks, are you truly committed? Because when you're committed to something, you're going to do whatever it takes. And 3 minutes, if you don't have 3 minutes, my mom told me don't shame anyone, but shame on you if you don't have 3 minutes. If you can't schedule 3 minutes in your calendar to invest in someone else to be happy, you've got bigger problems. But I think it's a combination of laziness. We live in a microwave society where everyone wants it right now. And you see, I'm a 34-year overnight success. And I haven't even scratched the surface of what's on the horizon, but everyone wants it right now. They want it yesterday. And it's like, no, you got to put in the hard rowing today and tomorrow and the next day, over the next 855 days. You got to put in that hard rowing if you even want to have a chance at having success. Mm-hmm. But sometimes folks get in their own mind and they're either lazy, they're scared, they have unrealistic expectations that, oh, I go to the gym today, where's my six-pack? No, come and holler at me 10 months down the road when you've been consistently hitting the gym and you've been eating right. No more Bojangles for you.
That's right. And I think the key too is everyone listening, the step forward could just be one small thing. It could be 10 sit-ups today, right? It doesn't, and again, when you look at the six-pack and again, you look at that build, you got to stop it. You have to just say, okay, you know what? And I think, again, it's like, well, I used to work out 4 days a week and I used to have a six. Who cares? Who cares? Who cares about what you used to have? Who cares about, what other people have? I'm telling you, just do the small things today. I had to do a reset. I was looking at my COVID weight and I did a 5-day fast. It's like fast mimicking diet, etc. And it was really hard until it wasn't. By day 3, I'm like, all right, I'm good. And sure, and I lost 9 pounds in 5 days. 9 pounds in 5. I'm going to do it again. I'm doing it again in like 3 weeks. And it's just one day. I was like, I got to do something different. I got to pattern disrupt. I got to try something different. And this, they don't sponsor the show or anything, but ProLawn is the name of this program by this guy at USC. And, for me, I felt that way for a little bit around like those topics. And it was very helpful for me to just say, hey, Jake, stop worrying about, playing varsity basketball, like that level of shape. Forget all that, or college or these other things. It's like, what's my one step toward being a better version of myself, who I want to be, who I make, my own health, for myself and my kids. And so I think for a lot of people, they worry too much about that as opposed to taking one day. That's it. One day, 3-minute challenge. Gosh, I just can't imagine. I'm going to do it. I promise. Larry, as soon as we end this podcast, I want everyone to stop whatever you're doing. Maybe you're out for a run. Maybe you're doing something. I want you to stop and I want you to take the 3-minute challenge. I'm going to do it today as soon as we wrap up here. So I think that's such a good mindset, give back, deposit that again is also depositing that serotonin for yourself. It feels good to do good for others. So as we start to wrap here, man, obviously the book is the new thing. What are you thinking about next? What are you thinking about for you as you're kind of building towards something? It's been a year now where you're kind of doing your own thing, building your own business. What are some of the things that you're excited for? Obviously the book and its success that are on the horizon for you.
Yeah, well, now I've got my kids thinking about a children's book, a little Jolt for kids, really talking about some of the concepts, but also talking about fitting in school, making smart choices. That's my son. I got a 12-year-old son. How do we make sure we make the right choice, the smart choice when we're presented with two different options? So that's on the horizon. The audio book, but also I'm starting to noodle on a streaming web series. Who would have thunk it? I never would have thought that I'd be putting together a digital show, but I'm starting to lay the plans down. But the one that gets me most excited, Jake, I've set a date, December 11th, 2025. That's going to be the 10-year anniversary of me losing my father. I'm going to have either broken ground and or have a fund for the Shorty Long Foundation to support inner city youth that want to go to college, that want to go to that higher education, but don't have the financial resources. My father grew up in the projects of Baltimore City. Track was his ticket out. There's so many talented youth that just need that support from a financial perspective to pursue higher education. I've committed 7% of every dollar that I get in, 7% goes to the Shorty Long Foundation. That's what I'm super excited about. December 11, 2025, we're going to be blessing a lot of folks in a tangible way to really help them to live their dreams. So that's what gets me most excited. And I'll be honest with you, Jake, I had imposter syndrome. Like my fees, I'm not cheap. But I used to think of myself as cheap. Well, working with my coach, she said, Larry, your why is so powerful. So you've got to quote your full fee and get your value so that you can then support and bless others. So it's been just an amazing journey. I'm having fun. I'm learning. It's just amazing. The future, I would say the sky is the limit. But I'll be honest, and this is for you and everyone else out there, there is no limit, Jake. To you, your listeners, to myself, there is no limit.
I love it. And my friends, if you're listening to this and you're not smiling, at least, if you're not just like even smiling a little bit, if you're not even just like a little bit like, man, I can do this. I'm telling you, follow Larry on, every social channel that you can. Really get involved with his content. Check out the book, obviously. Because this is a guy just putting out positivity on like a next level. So Larry, I appreciate it, man. Always good to catch up. He said we haven't caught up in 2 years, but man, it doesn't feel that way. And I think that's your superpower though, right, Larry, is that when you connect with people, it feels like it was yesterday, So I really want to say a big thank you for joining me. And I'm sure everyone on the podcast got a lot out of this as well too, man.
Jake, thank you so much. I appreciate you hosting me. Keep up the amazing work you're doing. This has been an absolute honor and a privilege.
All right. Thank you, sir. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this episode of The Jake Dunlap Show. And we will see you next week.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in to another extremely fun and interesting episode. I thought it was fun and interesting, so I hope you did too, of The Jake Dunlap Show. Really great, just breaking down everything that makes people who they are, the success, the trials and errors, and I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite platform, and make sure, more than anything, to go over to jakedunlap.com. That's where you're going to stay up to date on all the latest guests, additional details, prep notes. We're going to be sharing everything on jakedunlap.com. So go ahead, go over there. You can subscribe there as well too, and we will see you next week on The Jake Dunlap Show.